At half-time, Aston Villa were top of the table, level on points with Liverpool. However, subsequently throwing away those 3 goals, of course, means that Manchester United Manchester United get the 3 points. They sit 6th. Aston Villa in 3rd. For more on this, Frank LeBoeuf joins us. We're in Frank in a moment. What a game, Craig.
Oh. Well, there's always 2 sides to a story. And the first half was the Man United side that we've come to just obliterate.
They were so bad.
They were poor. They were second to every ball. They were wasteful in possession. They looked vulnerable at the back, and they didn't pick up properly from set pieces, right? Oh, and on top of that, Bruno Fernandes spent the first 45 minutes moaning and groaning and whining, right? Including the first Villa goal, which Leon Bailey was stood on the goalkeeper, but the laws changed years ago. He's not in an offside position. So that was Man United, his first 45, which obviously Villa were 2-0 up. But you have to give United so much credit for the change at half-time. And yes, Villa were complicit in at least a couple of the goals. When Diego Carlos plays a poor pass, when Longley tries to play out from the back and gives a corner away and they lose a goal. But all those mistakes came from a United side that just seemed to be, to me, 10 or 15 yards further up the field, where clearly Ten Hag said at half-time, listen, the keeper will take chances, the centre-halves will take chances, the midfielders will take chances, and they'll prod balls in there. And if we set off them, they'll continue to score goals and they'll beat us. But if we go and press them, and we ask them some questions, and we have some energy and pace, maybe they'll make some mistakes. And that's exactly what they did. Villa could not handle the United pressure in the second half. They forced them into poor mistakes. They paid the ultimate price for it. And that was so much better for Man United. But we've seen it before. We saw it for periods in the Chelsea game. So we're seeing little glimpses now and again. But that second 45 was the kind of intensity that the paying Man United public should be demanding to see more often.
The other thing about United, particularly in the second half, and Lee Dixon in our commentary touched on it, was that they are now, or certainly in the second half, played to their strengths. For so much, and you see so many teams, regardless of position in the league, try to play this total football we're going to build out from the back, which never suited United. It never suits who United are. It doesn't suit who their personnel are right now. You start with Garnacho and Rashford in wide areas, yet the focus is on building on from the back, as opposed to using those 2 players for their pace, trying to stretch Aston Villa, ask questions of that back 4. And once I thought in the second half, United started to get a little bit more direct, started to play to those strengths, you saw Aston Villa recoil and Manchester United making the most of the players that they have available to them. And as a result, got the just rewards.
As I mentioned, Frank is here, Jules as well. Frank, what a turnaround in this game. What a second-half performance from United.
Yes, fantastic. Fantastic. I was very worried, 2-0 at halftime. I said, wow, that's going to be a disaster and Craig's going to be over the moon. I'm just teasing you, my man. But really, I saw that second half. I said, well, that's not the same man. It's not the same team. It's definitely not the same spirit. And it's what we are looking for. I mean, I like the fact you mentioned the way that teams are playing now with the building up, from the back, take the time, being precise. But I like the football with the spirit, with the intensity, with the pace that they showed during the second half. Like Newcastle does and did last season. It's the way I see my football, the football that I love, that the football I'm ready to pay to be entertained. And that's what I saw the second half. Everybody involved, everybody spot on. Yes, it's demanding, but it's what people want to see. They don't want to see something slow. They want to see something with spirit, with men capable of fighting against 11 other men who are maybe keeping the ball but not doing anything. And it's what happened. The Villains, they handled the first half easily because Manchester United didn't do anything. And when Manchester, as Craig mentioned, put put everybody 15 yards upper on the field, it changed everything because the aggressiveness came up with the intensity that they put. It's what I like. It's the football I like. It's maybe tiring, but it's the way and the only way you can cope with teams like Villa, but also Manchester City or Paris Saint-Germain some years ago. You have to press the opponent.
What a moment, Jules, for Rasmus Hojlund.
Incredible, and you saw with the celebration how much we often say the cliche sentence is how much it means to him or to the fans, etc. But I think this time it was fair because, like Craig said, he had never scored yet in the Premier League. He had five goals in the Champions League, of course, but in the Premier League there was just nothing there. And for him to score that goal at that time as well, so it's not like if they were 3-0 down and he scored a consolation goal. This one he knew at the time was potentially the winning one. Too, and you saw, I mean, his face became so as red as the shirt almost. I thought he was going to explode his face at some point. But clearly all that kind of anger and frustration came out at the same time. And it's good, it's a really good finish. It's a number 9 finish because he was aware, he was on his toes, the ball bounced off a defender and then he was there. Maybe slightly lucky, but still, the way he hits it, but it was just there, perfect. And we've said before that the service has been quite poor to him, especially recently against again, in the last game, he touched the ball, I think, once away at West Ham in the West Ham box for the whole hour that he played on the pitch, which is not good enough. And tonight, there were a couple of times where he was involved, bad touch, poor ball, things like that. But that finish and that goal, I think, will be a massive boost.
We saw Onana, of course, join in those celebrations, running the length of the pitch. What did you say, Shaq?
I wasn't doing that. That's a long way back. It's all fun and games running here to celebrate. When you hit that half line, you realize, goodness me, I still have a long way to go here.
Yep.
That's tiring.
I thought it was big, but I didn't think it was quite that big. It was a big goal for the young man, but not. But I think you can go to the other end of the field as well, particularly in the second half, and say, look, Garnacho with his goals, Hojlund with his goal, Rashford looked better, and yeah, they pressed. But at half-time, when Ten Hag said, look, we can't set off this side.
Right.
We just cannot set off this side. We need to go and force mistakes. And when they do that, that's leaving Raphael Varane, who has been out the side, and Johnny Evans, who's, I don't know, what's Johnny Evans, 36, 37. But that's definitely leaving them potentially more exposed to one of the hardest guys to handle in the Premier League. Certainly this season in Ollie Watkins. And I thought, although they didn't have to do it too many times, I thought Varane and Evans, bearing in mind, Varane hasn't played a lot recently, and Johnny Evans, I've talked about his age, I thought they did a really, really good job on Ollie Watkins in the second half. We barely saw Ollie Watkins in the second half, and whenever I see Villa play, he's a nightmare for defenders, an absolute nightmare for defenders. So I thought they did a good job as well, but they can't afford to have the type of performance that they had in the first 45 going forward, because they'll get beat. And so he somehow has to take this. And I don't know if he can or not, because we saw a very good performance against Chelsea, although Chelsea are not as good a side as Villa. It was still a big game, and we saw a United side that created 28 efforts at goal. They worked hard, they pressed, they had energy, and then after that game at Old Trafford, it sort of went away again. Ten Hag cannot afford it to go away again, then, because 3 or 4 games down the line, if it has, he's going to face the same questions again.
Tell me this. It's an easy statement to make from what we saw.
Dan, I'm sorry, Dan.
No,
Dan, I'm sorry, because I want to talk about Onana and what Craig explained. But the thing is, you have a little margin between a real joy and a disaster. At 2-1 for Aston Villa, there is a big chance for Bailey. And Onana makes a great save and maybe made Manchester surviving. But don't forget that it's about football in its detail. What would have happened if Aston Villa would have scored at that time? I think it would have killed Manchester United. So yes, we can be enthusiastic about what they did second half. But as Bailey scored, it would have been a total different story, I think.
To that point, and as much as Frank is saying that maybe that Villa goal would have killed United, and possibly, when Garnacho's first goal was disallowed for the offside, my immediate reaction was, that just popped a bubble here for United. For all their good football, to have a goal disallowed so sloppily, Garnacho getting ahead of Rashford on that play, I thought that would have let all the air out of the room. But it didn't deter United any at all. And I give them a lot of credit for continuing that energy, continuing that tempo. And while we've rightly levied a lot of criticism against Manchester United, when he thinks defensively, I was looking at them forwards on that left-hand side where Bailey played on the right for Villa. A couple of weeks ago, Bailey absolutely tore Guardiola to shreds because he was left one-on-one. And in the first half, he was left one-on-one with Dalot, and I was like, here we go again. He is going to have a field day. But as the game wore on, and particularly in the second half, you saw Evans start to drift over more. And not once in the second half do I remember Bailey getting one-on-one with Dalot in the way that he was in the first. So I just felt that some of the little adjustments that United made were very effective. And adjustments well, I certainly don't recall seeing at any point this season.
Is it a valid statement to say this second half performance from Manchester United shows that the players are still very much behind Ten Hag?
Well, it's about standards. And the standard of that second half, particularly the work rate and the closing down, was pretty much perfect. So I think it's hard to argue that, look, it is crystal clear that there's been some issues in this camp, right? Tonight, in this game at Old Trafford, which was very timely because the Ineos investment has been announced and signed off, and the cameras kept panning to some people in the crowd that are high up in the Ineos management and will be involved in the structuring of the football department at Man United, and so it was very timely. But we've seen this before. So, you know, it's about consistency, it's about standards. This was a really good 45 minutes for them, after a really bad 45 minutes for them. But we've seen this movie, we've all seen this movie several times, maybe more than several times this season. So until this happens with any sort of consistency, I don't think we can quite turn this chapter.
I think one of the positives again is you're playing Aston Villa, a team near the top of the table who are playing with confidence, will play on the front foot, and certainly as a player you don't need any motivations. How do you fare, and I know West Ham just went, but how do you fare against teams in that middle of the pack? Teams who are happier to sit in and allow you to have the ball. Teams who don't allow you just to use your wingers and that pace of play. And how does that start to frustrate Manchester United? And then all of a sudden it becomes a very different conversation. And again, I know we were just off losing to West Ham, but if Manchester United do similarly with a Crystal Palace or Wolves or somebody mid-table-ish, what's the reaction, what's the response then?
Well, this is going to be it. On Saturday, they're away against Nottingham Forest, Jules. We'll learn a lot, won't we? Is this just a flash in the pan, as Craig said, against Chelsea? Or does this game really change their season around?
Yeah, exactly. And let's not forget that in the reverse fixture against Forest at Old Trafford, they were 2-0 down, United, and they came back to win 3-2. And when we're saying we've seen this before, we saw it at the end of August. That game was at the end of August, and we thought at the time, okay, now that game has kicked on their season. And yet after that, it was chaos, as we saw, and up and down, really more down than up, by the way. So today felt a little bit the same, and Villa are a better team than Forest this season, there's no doubt. And they were very disappointing, I thought, in their second half, Villa. But yeah, you're right. The next game against Forest, who obviously won today with Nuno, his first win, that would be a boost for them. They would play very differently, than defensively and offensively, than Villa did today. But they will be at home, and United will have to go away and travel to the City ground. So again, I think I agree with Frank in a way about the fact that there's also the McGinn chance at 2-2, by the way, that Evans saves with his foot, otherwise the ball goes in, and that's 3-2 for Villa then. So, but as always, in every game like this, there's always some pros and cons in a way. But United, hopefully for them, will have learned a lot from that second half and from the first half as well. And you would think that the boost from Hojlund, the boost for Garnacho, even collectively, what we saw in the second half will kind of inspire them to go to Forest and get something and then get on that run. They need a run. We've said it many times on the show. They need a really positive runs, like 4 or 5 games in a row without losing again, to really look like they are on the right path.
Well, he He just seems to me at the moment, Ten Hag is one of those managers when it's all going against him. There's a result pops up. You know, just to sort of...
Solskjaer had that as well, didn't he, during his tenure?
Yeah.
We just saw, right, that's it.
He did have that. Unfortunately, he didn't have any CV behind him to back it up any more than that. But you know, I think we're at that stage with Ten Hag, whereas if they go to Forest, who've just beaten Newcastle, so they've got a little bit of confidence, it'll be at the City Ground, and they feel a bit wrong from the start of the season because they felt the referee was horrendous that day at Old Trafford. They had a man sent off harshly. It feels like we'll be back to square one again, where the headlines will be, well, any of us are going to make the changes, Ten Hag's not the man. And it's hard to, I think it's hard to see United putting 3 or 4 really good results together because it is so inconsistent. But he is, you know, with the draw at Anfield, he dug out, you know, something that was tangible because everybody was thinking it was going to be 5 or 6 and he was going to get absolutely plastered. He didn't. Lose at West Ham and in a very poor result. All of a sudden they're playing Villa. They're 2-0 down. Right, it's going to be 4 or 5. He's going to be... Tomorrow we're going to be reading he's out, he's sacked, and he's side turned it around and he's kind of... There's only so long you can live on the edge. So it kind of feels like that for him at the moment. And so we'll see where they go from here. But we can only take it on this one game. And from what I saw in the second half and what we all saw, if he can sort of can that and take it forward with him, he's got half a chance. But if he can't, he'll end up out the door.
What does this mean for Villa?
It's been a really poor few days. You know, Sheffield United was a bad one for them. Late Zaniolo equaliser off the bench. There was a couple of horrendous decisions that didn't go their way in terms of the officiating, but they didn't kill Sheffield United off. I think, I might be wrong, but I think he'll be stripping them down, Unai Emery, in the dressing room, because they were so sloppy. And look, they didn't handle the pressure. And if you're going to be up there, if Arsenal are going to win the league, if Liverpool are going to win the league, and if City are going to continue to do it, they handle this type of pressure that teams try and put on them in a better manner. Villa were asked a question, a big question in the second half, and they could not handle the pressure that United put on them. And they got sloppy. And I think what it tells you is everything we've known, that they're up there, it's a great story. But if they get in the top 4 this year, that will be a marvellous season for them. But this manager, this Spanish manager, he's going to be a very unhappy chappie tonight.
Yeah, it is concerning. You could highlight every United goal and the errors from Villa that led to them, of course, coming back and getting that victory, Jules. And it's got to be a concern going forward, the word pressure being associated with Aston Villa and them not being able to handle it.
Yeah, although they'd never lost any point. They never dropped points until tonight from a winning position this season in the Premier League. But away from home, they've been average most of the time. They were lucky to win at Spurs. They were lucky for the draw at Bournemouth. But more often than not, they haven't been good at home. Certainly not away from home. Certainly not as good as they've been at home, obviously, apart from the Sheffield United game. So I thought that second half was horrendous from them. I thought they lost control. They lost their discipline, most importantly. And the high line and the offside trap, of course, we've talked about it. We've praised them a lot for him. The first half he worked, although there was a couple of times where they were just about lucky. But I think they caught United 6 times offside in the first half, which is more than any other team in the whole league this season. But the second half you saw, and okay, there's no Camara, there's no Pau Torres. And for all the love I've got for Lenglet just because he's French, it's not the same as Pau Torres. And to be fair, you know, then Donker or Ramsey, depending on who you think really replaced Camara, because McGinn had to change position. It's not the same without Camara and that Douglas Luiz-Camara partnership in centre midfield. But still, I thought the second half was really poor and really disappointing. And for a team, like we said, who wants to play for the league, really, sorry, Frank, just to finish, this is not good enough, simply.
Frank?
Well, I think there is one player who's going to be very upset about himself and his performance. Is Lenglet. I mean, everybody saw the second half when he tried to take the player on and conceded a corner, and that corner gave the second goal, the third goal, sorry. But on the, I think I was on the second goal or the first goal, I try to remember, when he tries to tackle and get the ball in corner, he misses the ball. And so I think he can be very upset by himself and his performance the second half. I saw him a little bit struggling, and that's not a performance that you have after playing for Barcelona for years, playing for the national team. I think you can do better than that. And I'm with the guys, you know, defensively, what Aston Villa showed the second half was absolutely horrendous. They were all over the place. They didn't know how to handle the pressure of the Red Devils. And it's why they lost that game. That's quite. It's going to hurt them. It's going to hurt them, and Emery would have to work very hard with them to make sure they go back to where they were.